Hi, welcome to Environmental Health. We're going to be talking to people about their experiences in nature and the massive impact that nature can have on our mental health. Aura, what is our word of the day?
Our word of the day today is to deracinate. It is a verb. And yes, of course, it means to pull up by the roots and to sort of potentially move elsewhere. But the meaning of the word that we're focusing on today is deracinate, to isolate or alienate a person from a native culture or environment. And here to talk to us today is Bred. And I wonder if you could just start off by telling us a bit about yourself and maybe how the word deracinate resonates with you.
Hello, so I'm Bred. I am Head of Strategic Communications for UK Youth for Nature. And I guess the biggest thing for me is the, with the word deracinate, I think because of my disability that I have, it's a physical disability, the alienation aspect of deracinate is what sort of resonates the most with me. I've always felt a bit lost from my sort of like surroundings. I feel a bit disconnected, I guess is the right word. Whenever I've been to university or when I've worked somewhere or if I've just been at home, I've always felt quite like I can't travel very far when it comes to getting into nature, getting out there. Even just sitting in the back garden can sometimes be quite difficult. And also alienation in the aspect of communication, social. When, like if I've been at university or something, I've never felt like I could go out far or move to a different place. I often just stay inside, carry on doing what I'm doing and try to forget that the social aspect is happening somewhere else. So I guess deracinate is quite quite a useful word for me to use. It's something that I should probably use in the future when I'm talking about myself. Alienation is probably a bit of a strange word that people might not associate with nature and how to get there and what to do. But I think in this context, alienation and specifically feeling like you can never get there or it's out of your reach or if it's completely foreign to me is quite a big deal.
And so I guess that leads me on to sort of my next question, which is, what has that been like for your mental health, this alienation from the natural world?
Being alienated from the natural world. During my degree, I studied spiders and I worked in forestry, identifying different spiders and invertebrates and stuff like that. Mental health has always suffered, it's always struggled because of that social aspect. I've never been able to get there, I've never been able to speak with people consistently. If they want to leave and get food, I often just can't quite get there. It's hard to move and follow them around. And it's left me quite isolated and it's not lost, but I've had to find other ways of keeping in contact with people. I've had to find other ways of experiencing stuff. Typically, when I've also worked in other institutions across the globe. I've worked in Sweden and France, and both times I felt quite challenged to keep up to date with people and to make friends and stuff like that. I've had to utilize electronic communications a bit more than other people. I've had to like sort of bank on them helping me out and driving me places, or just staying behind and chatting or going to a local pub rather than going to a distant pub, for example, that might be a bit cooler. That's also had its benefits in some regards, because I ended up doing a few trips around Sweden because one of the guys had a car and just wanted to go driving for a bit, and nobody else wanted to sit in the car with him for 6 hours driving around. But I was like, well, sounds good to me. I can go driving. That's what I like to do, sitting down for 6 hours. That's perfect.
Nice.
So from the mental health, in fact, specifically talking about how I get out into nature and why it's such an important thing to me for my mental health, is that it allows me to connect with something that also suffers quite a lot. Nature, you might not think about it, or at least most people probably don't think about it, but I do quite a lot. things like trees just suffering from daily drought, like they actually show quite a lot of signs of weakness when it comes to an intense sun. Their roots, they tend to complain when people walk on their roots. Plants have been known to scream when you cut them, even just brushing over them. It's not really a scream, it's more of a release of gas, but I like to continuously think about it as a scream. And nature for me is quite depressing in the sense that everything struggles, everything suffers, yet it continues to grow, it continues to thrive no matter what the circumstances. And that's probably been a big life lesson for me, is how human all of these non-human things are, and how we can continue to learn from them even if we are not necessarily out there all the time. Like I don't get out into the garden all the time, I don't get out into a forest all the time, but it's continuously with me when I'm walking around town, when I'm walking around school, university, I'm just chatting with friends. I'm thinking, what can those experiences in nature teach me, and what can they bring into this sort of human-centric view of the world?
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from you is this similarity, this thread between nature and its maybe feelings that we maybe attribute to it of suffering, but actually the pain that is inevitable in all life, and the feelings of suffering and pain that we as human beings experience, and how the fact that, nature accepts and moves on and continues to grow and continues to thrive even in dire conditions, and how this can be really inspiring for us and can maybe inspire us, to accept our conditions that might be less than favorable.
Completely agree. I think everything that exists in nature, their primary focus is to grow and to thrive. They will do that no matter what. I have quite a lot of plants that I bring inside my home to sort of remind me when I can't get out there that even in dimmed conditions, even without wind, even without consistent, the correct light, I don't look after plants properly. Like they're all meant to have different volumes of light and different amounts of water. I just give them what I think they need, and sometimes they die and sometimes they grow. Most of the time they die very slowly, and that just shows to me, like, even if something's dying, it's still putting up a fight, it's still trying, and that's what I've done throughout my entire life.
That's really nice. And I mean, I think you've already kind of answered my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway and see if anything new comes up. When you do manage to actually get out there and be in a wilder landscape, and you're from all the way up north, so there's a lot of that around. What is that like? What does it feel like?
There's a lot of different views, locations. I've got bogs, peats, sea, oceans, lakes. What else have I got? Freshwater. I have a beck behind my house, and all of those fantastic locations and viewpoints all bring a sense of joy every time I see them. I have photos of different species, like different animals that I keep around me, just to remind me of how close we can be to nature at all times, and something that's quite important to me. And maybe it's not necessarily important to the rest of my family. Most of them don't necessarily care so much about the environment like I do. I think for me, it's been an outlet. It's been a point of joy, a source of joy, not a point of joy. And it's been something that I didn't really realize until sort of this past year in lockdown, and how important it is to me. Like, my disability has held me back quite a lot. It's helped, like, sort of slowed me down, and I haven't thought so much about my capacity of mental health and how I struggle a lot with a lot of things. My pain varies quite a lot daily, but the big thing for me is having a constant outlet, a constant source of relief, and a source of joy, and a source of excitement and happiness. And I think we all long for that at some point. I think everybody has their own way of experiencing that. Some people go dirt biking, some people will just go for a nice walk, some people will just look outside a window, just open a window for a bit of fresh air. That opening a window for a bit of fresh air in the morning is what, it's such a good feeling. So little things like that I've tried to always enjoy and experience, and just remind myself that, yeah, I am human. I have these little small bits that'll just keep me going. And I think it's only been the past few years where I've sort of really realized the benefit of these small things.
That is just beautiful. I think there's something, I think I heard something about the ability to hold nature with you, and to hold it as something that actually, dare I say, is sacred, even if you can't at that moment be in nature. And I mean, I feel the same. I have a few little plants and a little terrarium that I keep. And so when I'm spending all my days on my computer, I'm reminded of actually this beautiful natural world that is so close, and as you were saying, does thrive at all costs, and its purpose is to grow. And I think that the ability to hold that reminder when we maybe can't access nature for whatever reason, obviously for your reason, because it's not so easy and it can be painful, is something that's really important.
Genuinely, yeah. Those small bits of happiness, those small bits of joy, are quite a relief. And I'm trying to think. As I was growing up as a child, most people didn't really understand why I enjoyed weird things, why I enjoyed these. Like I used to have these really heavy boots I used to wear, and I used to get prescribed them every year, and they used to weigh my feet down because I tended to walk where I lifted my feet up too quickly. So they basically added sandbags to my feet to weigh me down, to stop me from acting like a horse gallivanting around. And from that, I started to realize that the things that I did were weird and different, not because of my choices, but just because of things that were out of my control. And I started to understand and love the quirkiness in myself. And I think that's my first point of contact to experiencing the quirkiness of nature. And I think maybe that's something that the listeners might resonate with, that don't be afraid to enjoy your own quirkiness. Even though at the time I hated it. I hated everybody looking at me with my little cloppy horseshoes on and all of those quirky features. But it's one of those things that I think has built me to be this person that can accept knockbacks, can accept change, can accept a lot of frustration. And like I said, I've been to Sweden. I lived in Sweden for a bit. I lived in France for a bit, and they accepted me for who I was and my intelligence and what I could provide, without my physical disability holding me back. And that's something that nature has allowed me to do, specifically forestry, and the economic value that nature can have sometimes is something that I don't think I would have ever experienced when I was would have ever experienced if I hadn't have been a quirky child that was not afraid to just let go and just run with what I enjoyed. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you very much. And I mean, I guess this brings me to kind of my final area of inquiry, should we say? Does that sound too academic? I don't know. So I mean, we've spoken about a lot of things in the past. I have no idea how long, because I haven't been looking at the time. But what would you like to see our government do in light of kind of everything that we've discussed today?
It's a very tricky question to answer to start off with, because there are so many things they could do. I think for me, it's hard to sort of pinpoint the exact specific one policy demand that they could perhaps provide, because like I said, I'm quite resilient, I'm quite resourceful, and I've spent a lot of time just accepting that things are going to be horrible for me and things are not going to be nice. Like getting into nature is very difficult for me sometimes. Like there's not enough car parking spaces, there's no disabled spots. Sometimes there are car park, like a lot of the SSSI, so sites of special scientific interest, they don't have any access at all. You kind of there's just walls around them, or there's a fence around them, or there's nothing around them, and you just got to hope and go there. That's kind of the stuff that I enjoy and the stuff that I love, and you can't just rock up in a taxi there because they're in the middle of nowhere. So I've I guess the big thing for the UK government could do is kind of take a leaf out of another country's book, potentially Sweden's, and where they treat access to nature and mental health as a priority. Its culture is their priority rather than perhaps production forestry, but more importantly than that, the right to roam, the feeling of safety, the feeling of wherever I go, I can go there without worrying about where I'm going to go. So in Sweden, you can walk anywhere. You can walk through farms as long as you're respectful and you don't trash the place or, start burning things, etc. You're allowed to go wherever you want. You can walk through farmers' fields. You can walk through production forestry. You can walk through somebody's back garden if it leads you to somewhere that you need to go. For example, in the UK, I've never felt like that has been possible, because I could walk down the side of a river, and perhaps there's not an easy way for me to get from one side to the other. Maybe there's a bridge in the way and the path's broken or whatever. I can't then quickly nip up a riverbank, nip into somebody's garden, walk across, and then go down the other side. I have to kind of make that choice of, well, I have to stop now, or I have to try and go through this horrible path. Some people could probably manage to negotiate that. Some people could navigate that, but for me with my disability, it's sometimes not the best option, and that's limiting the amount of areas that I can go quite substantially. Other things like walking through, so in Yorkshire, a lot of farming fields. There've been points where I've walked through fields and have been confronted with farmers who are not particularly happy that I am there and have held guns and shouted the odds and said, "Why are you on my land?" Even though it's a public right to roam, if I nip off that path for any other reason, or if the path stops, or if it perhaps leads somewhere that doesn't lead to a gate or a turnstile or anything like that, I am trespassing, and that's scary. Most people are scared about that. I know it's one of those things you have to not worry about so much, but you do worry about that, especially if I'm not quick enough. I can't outrun somebody. It's not going to happen. I can't outrun dogs. I can't outrun people. I'm always the slowest person. I am that person that you leave behind if a zombie apocalypse happened. I am that sacrifice. So for me, I have to be very conscious about where I'm going, where am I putting my foot? Is it okay? Is it fine? And that is something that the UK government has to fix. Not because it's a huge deal. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to fix everything. It's not going to create a massive amount of people going into nature or whatever. But what it will mean is that people feel safer if they do happen to veer off the path, or if they do, something happens and they just want to walk down to the road and there's not a clear path there. They can just go, well, I'm going to that road because I want to, get home safer, or that it's got a bit muddy. I want to just walk straight down to the road and I feel safe doing that. It's going to cross these farmers' fields and I might get in trouble, but I have the law on my side. I am safe to do so because I'm making a choice to get there, and I'm not doing it intentionally. I'm not trying to steal things. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just trying to enjoy nature where I can. Those little choices like that sound so inconsequential, but for somebody who can't, like I say, has to think quite well in advance, it's stressful and does prevent you from going places. And that's not what nature should be about. I should never have to worry about and think about what happens if this. I should be thinking about my own health and my own safety, my own path home, and maybe the people that are with me, thinking about how I can look after them and are we having a good time. That's what I should think about. I shouldn't have to think about all these extra tidbits here and there. Most importantly, I think most people want to follow the law. They do try where they can to just be sensible, but the laws in the UK are not sensible. They're not practical. So I guess that's what I would say.
Thank you. Some really interesting things to think about, I think, for anyone who has made it up till this point in the podcast, which I really hope they have. So, I guess we'd just like to say thank you for coming to speak to us, Bred. It's been really interesting. And yeah, you've given us a lot to think about.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for just talking to me and provoking some sort of really good information. And I hope the listeners have maybe they haven't listened to me very much, but I hope that they've at least experienced or tried to connect with something that I've said, and hopefully it helps them realize that, you know, it can be hard and it can be difficult, but there's a path forward.